CBS Sports NFL insider Jason La Confora. I'll let you know that J.J. Hardy with a 2-run single for the Orioles in the top of the first inning. The Orioles lead the Yankees behind their ace, Chris Tillman, 2-0 right now in the Bronx. Welcome to the Rich Eisen Show, Jason La Confora. How are you, Jason?
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm watching it on Mass and as we speak. So huge double play. I don't know if you guys saw it there in the studio, but double play by Chris Davis and Chris Tillman.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so it's still 2-0. Runner on third, 2 outs. I can play-by-play it for you, Rich, if you want.
You're almost like John Miller, Jason.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
Almost back in the day.
Yeah.
So what can you tell me about Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Jets? Let's start with that one.
Yeah, I wrote about this fairly extensively at the beginning of the week. There is going to come a point, I'm becoming increasingly convinced, where Mike Maccagnan will take some of the advice that's been given to him by peers and cohorts in and out of that building, which is you have to draw the line, bud. You have to give that quarterback and that agent a drop-dead point. And if you're smart, it's sometime around next Monday and Tuesday and not after Wednesday when veterans get there. Will we do it or not, Rich? I don't know. But at some point, when there's nothing else out there, it's not even like they're competing against backup. He does not have anything else on the table that I or anyone else in the league am aware of, that they have to say you're either with us or you're not. And you can take this $12 million for this year and enjoy it, and we'll worry about years 2 and years 3 of that contract. And if you want to get out of it in a year and you don't want to play for $8 million next year, worry about that then. But this offer, it doesn't stand forever. And when it's off the table and when you're not on our roster, we're going to have a press conference, or we're going to come out and we're going to talk about who's here at the start of camp, and you're not going to be on the team this year.
And try and sell Geno Smith in that locker room? Unless he doesn't need to be sold in that locker room.
Look, they've got, I guess it's strength in numbers, right? They have 3 young quarterbacks on the roster. Are any of them the answer? I don't think so. But, the larger reality is if those kids are going to develop, if one of them is going to come out of the shadows, then it can't be where every single day, every question being asked is about the guy who's not there, who the moment he gets back in the building takes your job. Like, that's not a way to run a franchise. And, that goes sort of counter to everything that Bowles and Maccagnan are trying to instill, right? The circus is out of town. We're not going to have secret meetings at 3 a.m. at diners, you know what I mean, in the middle of training camp to try to get guys signed. We're not going to have who's not in the building be more important than who is. We've got to kind of get back to basics and fundamentals here and instill a kind of, team-first mentality that, frankly, all winning teams have. Now, you make certain exceptions for the quarterback, but, again, at the end of the day, this is Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, I think we can't lose. Is he better than Geno Smith? Yeah. Is he taking this team to the Super Bowl or deep into the playoffs? No. So, will this team take a step back in 2016 compared to last year, no matter what, given the schedule and some of the realities they're facing? I mean, it's fair to say probably either way, but they don't view Fitzpatrick as the quarterback of the future. That's obvious, and he may not even be the quarterback of the present.
So was Hackenberg worth the 51st overall pick in the draft, Jason?
Well, thankfully, we don't have to make that final determination today.
Well, if you had to right now.
Do I think it was worth it?
Yeah.
I think it was high, but I'm not, but I'm not an evaluator. I'm not a GM. I'm not, I don't know. The truth there and the story there is still to be written. Maccagnan really liked what he saw out of that kid at Penn State early in his career. There's obviously some things that you think will translate to the pros and some other things that he's going to have to correct. I was surprised by it. In real time, I didn't like it, but again, we don't know the end result. We're not even to chapter 1 yet, you know what I mean, much less to the final chapter. If he turns out to be an NFL quarterback, even if he's a trade chip down the line or a solid backup, no one's really going to complain about where he was drafted, right?
Jason La Confora joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So how does the Broncos quarterback situation play out? Is Sanchez the guy, and then we'll see what happens in the preseason, or is Sanchez just the guy here?
I think it has to play out. I know that there is an incredible, trust me, I know real well, there's an incredible thirst and desire for NFL news and nuggets before they even happen. And yes, teams set nominal depth charts and pecking orders and start to divide up the reps early in camp. But especially in a situation like this, where they did make the move they make to take a quarterback in the first round, and they feel they can win without extraordinary, even solid quarterbacking. And John Elway tends to, when he picks a young quarterback, he tends to have a pretty keen eye for it. What I've heard all along is don't rule Paxton Lynch out of this thing at all. And it won't really matter so much who's 1, who's 2, who's 3. Come July 28th, let's talk after the second preseason game and see who's starting the third preseason game and see how the reps are divvied up then. So, I mean, I won't say it's Mark Sanchez's job to lose. I'll say it's his job to cling to life. Like, it's his job to hang on to that cliff if his fingernails are long enough. But it's not like people in that building are walking around saying, oh, yeah, we totally think his fingernails are long enough. You know what I mean? It's not like they think he's Stallone and Cliffhanger, and he's just going to hold on forever.
Nice.
Like, if Paxton Lynch comes out, week 1, week 2, week 3, starting a football game for them, I don't think it would shock many people in that organization.
Eugene Monroe's departure from Baltimore had to do with his talent or had to do with his stance on medical marijuana, Jason?
I mean, ultimately it was a football decision. They drafted Ronnie Stanley. Monroe hasn't played much for them the last 2 years. He'd rubbed some people the wrong way, and that certainly expedites your exit at times. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a Miko Grimes situation where truly the off-field thing probably mattered more than football. In this case, it didn't. If they didn't take Stanley, if their roster didn't look the way that it does, he might still be there, possibly, if he restructured his contract. But I think it was a confluence of events, Rich. The contract, his age, how little he's played lately, what they think will be, improved tackle play with Stanley. They drafted his replacement very, very high. And then you put the marijuana and some of the signals he had been sending about, maybe I'm not totally into this football thing anymore. With a coach like Harbaugh, that's a red flag. I'm frankly not surprised he hung it up. I mean, living here in Baltimore, kind of hearing things, having feelers out in that organization all the time, there were plenty of people there who felt like he may sign somewhere, but won't actually be playing football by the end of the season. Obviously, that happened a lot sooner than the end of the season.
I know the word appetite is probably not the word I should use, but I'll do it anyway since it's fitting. Is there an appetite in the NFL in terms of medical marijuana to loosen the reins even more than they've already been loosened on this front?
Well, I mean, within the rank and file of the NFLPA, absolutely, without a doubt. And as you continue to see it legalized, in more and more states and locales, there's more and more players looking around saying, and there's more studies being done on its effects on the brain, and if it can help alleviate, obviously pain on many different levels, and you can make the argument it's certainly a lot safer than some of the painkillers and Toradol shots and stuff these guys are getting, then yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. If you recall, I want to say it was maybe 18 months, a couple years ago, this kind of floated to the surface, became a bit of a hot-button issue. At one point, Goodell even publicly almost seemed to, indicate, yeah, that's something we might want to listen to. And then he came back a few months later at another press conference and basically squashed it, really stomped it into the ground. Was that from his inner circle? Was that from him having a sort of further deliberation on it internally? Or was that something sponsor-related as well, where they got feedback from maybe some of their different corporate entities who were like, I don't know. But regardless, you know what I mean, of how we got there, there certainly seemed to be a fairly, abrupt change of face. And since that moment, you haven't heard the league really embrace it much publicly, but as we know, they're always chatting with the NFLPA. There's always the opportunity to horse trade and tweak and alter drug policies and CBA-related elements. Personally, I hope that's one that they do sit down with and talk about in some great length.
Yeah, I agree. And where did Elliot Palman's departure come from, Jason? This guy's been around forever. Why now, all of a sudden, is he out?
We've seen somewhat quietly over the last year or so a fairly significant changing of the guard there, on Park Avenue. We've seen people who were top advisors to Goodell leave and new people come in. We've seen, Joe Lockhart now atop their sort of PR communications arm and someone who really, I think, was brought in and charged with trying to clean up some missteps, trying to make the public perception of what the league is doing in regards to some of these various matters, whether they be Deflategate or the Saints bounty scandal or obviously ongoing issues with concussions and the like. Try to do things that will be more publicly embraced. And obviously, Elliot Palman's someone who had been a bone of contention for many parties for a long period of time. And frankly, if you look at his where his original sort of field of study was and what kind of medicine he was originally involved in, it kind of begs the question, why didn't this happen a long time ago?
Yeah, and that's why I asked it. Like, why now all of a sudden?
I think there's some new sheriffs in charge there at Park Avenue, Rich.
Last one for you, Jason. What can you tell us on Josh Gordon's reinstatement attempt? What do you know?
Not a whole lot more than, what we knew a few months ago. Anytime a kid is that deep in the program and has had as many setbacks and is really at a stage that it's the odds are so heavily stacked against him, and the nature of how often he's tested, how regularly he's tested, how randomly he's tested, how a diluted sample or showing up late to a test, all these various things that in and of themselves aren't a failed test can really conspire against him. I'm basically in the camp that until, I see him actually in a jersey playing football on a Sunday. Unfortunately, I'd say the odds are very heavily stacked against him, but maybe he can truly have a kind of turnaround that gets him back in there. But, one fell step, one wrong night out, one instance hanging with the wrong people, even being around the wrong substances, whether he puts them in his body or not, could be a death knell for his career.
Bottom two heading there in the Bronx right now. It's still 2-0. Didi Gregorius leading off for the Yanks. Watch out for him, and certainly with that dangerous 7-hole hitter, A-Rod, behind him. Okay, Jason?
He had a solo homer the other night, man. So I'm scared of everybody right now. We've lost 4 or 5 in a row.
Yeah, what's going on? What's happened?
Well, there's a flu bug going around, so basically they've been playing short. If you've noticed, the last couple of nights it's been a spring training lineup. Julio Bourbon, who was in Bowie 3 nights ago, is starting in center field today. So that's pretty much all you need to know.
You are locked in, man, Jason La Confora. Thanks for calling. We'll touch base with you during training camps, okay?
My pleasure. Sounds good, buddy.
You're the man. That's Jason La Confora.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.